Before we dive into the tales, make sure to hit that subscribe button.
Before I start, I have to say that I am not an English-speaking person. So please excuse me if I do mistakes. Also, this is my first story. It certainly will not be very good or perfect, but maybe some of you will like it. Have fun. I never believed in the paranormal. I always thought that people who do that have too much fantasy or are straight up crazy. But something is happening to me. Something I cannot explain with science. I don't understand what is going on with me, and since my vocal cords don't work anymore, I have to write it down with my last strength. I hope someone finds this and is able to find out what is happening. I will start from the beginning. I work for a university, for an institute for forensic medicine, to be more specific. Our job is to find out why dead people have died. It is not very appetizing most of the time, because we have to cut open dead people, but I worked there for years, so I got used to most of the stuff. It all started on Monday. As always, a mortician came to us and brought us a corpse wrapped in a body bag in a coffin. He said that we should be careful when we open it, because the body is badly decayed. I don't have any problems with that. If I could not deal with decayed corpses, I would be in the wrong industry. So, we took the coffin and brought him in the room where we did our autopsies. We put on our clothing and unwrapped the corpse. The condition of the body was horrible. Almost like it was a mummy. The corpse did not have any hair or eyes, and its nose was also gone. It was very emaciated. You could almost see every bone. The skin was dark and like leather. But the worst thing was the smell. I worked there for years. I am used to the smell of decayed corpses, but that was something else. It was the first time that I had to gag during an autopsy. And I was not the only one. My colleagues also could not deal with the smell. One even had to vomit. My boss was angry and said that we should pull ourselves together, but I noticed that he also suffered because of that bad smell. After a while, we started with the autopsy. At first, we documented the condition of the corpse and everything else noticeable. There was nothing really spectacular, no injuries whatsoever. But I noticed something in the rotten face of the corpse. It was kind of smiling. No, more like grinning. Did the face of the corpse look like that when we opened the bag? I could not and still cannot remember, honestly, and I did not have the time to think much more about it because my boss yelled at me that I should stop dreaming and go to work. We started cutting the body open. The smell got only worse, and I had a hard time keeping my breakfast in my stomach. I don't know how to describe it, but it smelled more worse than other decayed bodies. Very sweet, but it also stung in my nose. My eyes started burning, and after a while I could even taste the horrible smell. My boss and my colleagues had also a very unpleasant time. It was so bad that we had to do a break because we could not bear the situation any longer. The time the upper body was cut open, the whole room was in a cloud of that bad smell. We looked in the inside of the body and expected decayed organs, but there was nothing. The body was empty. My boss looked at us clueless. We searched and searched, but there was no organ in this corpse. Only bones. We gave up after a while. My boss removed one of the bones and gave it to one of my coworkers for the DNA tests. At least one thing our institute could do with the body. I remember that he also contacted the mortician who brought the corpse to us, but even he did not know anything about the body. It was found in a little and empty apartment where no one lived after other people in the house started to notice the bad smell. My boss thanked him and told us that we should put the body in our mortician refrigerator. It was too late to stop the decomposition process, but maybe the bad smell would be reduced. We put it in there and then kept on working. The days after that were very normal. The experience with the weird corpse was quickly forgotten and only talked about again when the results of the DNA analysis returned. The result was that they could not work with the bone because there was no bone marrow in it. Very weird, we thought to ourselves, and my boss decided to try it with another bone. After hours, he came to us with the information that every bone he took was empty, and that he believes that there was also no bone marrow in the other ones. We never had a case that weird before, and my coworkers and I made wildly speculations why the body was that way. But my boss quickly got annoyed and yelled at us that we should go back to work. Days after that, the mortician came to get the corpse from us. While we wrapped it up, I took a last close look at the body. Nothing really special about it besides the fact that it is empty and grinning. I could not stop looking at its face. Its grinning was unsettling, but it also felt like it was watching me. Those empty, dark eye sockets looked at me.
You have seen too many movies.
I thought to myself and wrapped it finally up. The mortician took the corpse and drove away with it. I remember the day after that, I woke up with a very dry mouth and throat. It was so dry that I could not swallow anything. It did hurt in an extreme way, and even after drinking a bunch of water, it did not go away. I thought that I caught a cold or something like that, but beside that I did not have any other symptoms. Even after hours, the dryness did not vanish. I told my coworkers that I am sick and went to a doctor, but he could not find anything. He said that my mouth and throat really were dry, but he had no explanation for it. He gave me something against the pain and told me I should keep drinking water. It was annoying that he could not really do something against that, but I was glad that the painkillers worked. Drinking water helped also a bit, but no more saliva was reproduced. My mouth and throat kept being dry. I got used to it, but I knew I cannot live like that. I had to go to another doctor. The day I had my new appointment, I noticed that my whole skin felt dry, and not only that, but my eyes were also a little yellow. I was a bit scared, and I hoped the new doctor could help me with that. But it was also a waste of time. The new one also could not help me. He asked a bunch of questions, if I had allergies and that stuff, but I denied everything. At home, my skin started to itch. At first only a bit, but the feeling got stronger and stronger. In the end, so strong that I almost bleed because of my scratching. Luckily, I had a cream for my skin at home, but it took almost a whole bottle to stop the itching. My mind was like a roller coaster, and I asked myself what was wrong with me. What kind of disease was that? I stayed home from work the next days, because my condition got worse. The itching was unbearable. My eyes were not yellow anymore. They were brown and got more and more dry when I did not water them, and my mouth and throat were hurting so much that I almost had to cry. But even that did not work anymore. I wanted to cry, but no tears came out. And not only that, I stopped sweating. It was in the middle of summer, but I did not have to sweat in the heat. And really weird was the fact that I did not pee anymore. I drank so much water, but I did not have to go to the toilet for days. All the time I asked to myself, what was wrong with me? But it got worse. My fingertips got red-brown, then parts of my body started to change their color, and a weird, very sweet smell arose. I knew that smell. I knew it very well. Shocked and scared, I ran into my bathroom and took a good look at myself. I was so stupid I did not notice it before, but I looked exactly like a body beginning to decay. I could not believe it. I did not want to believe it. Suddenly I had to throw up. It was disgusting. I vomited blood, which was dark and green and thick fleshy parts. My organs. Those parts were my organs. I panicked. I had to do something, but I did not know what to do. An ambulance. A doctor. Someone must help me. But what should they do? I was rotting, a process natural for a lifeless body and something you could not stop. The only difference was that I am still alive. I am alive, but I am decaying. The smell got worse. From day to day. The first neighbors came hammering at my door and complained. I think they will soon break the door open and look after me. And what will they find? A rotting body, which is still alive. My whole organs have to be mush right now. I am almost blind. My legs do not work anymore. Under my skin, I can see my veins. They are green. My bones hurt so bad. What is happening to me? Why is this happening to me? Why am I still alive? I must be already dead. Or is this what dying feels like? Somebody has to help me. This is a nightmare, and I still hope to wake up. With my last strength, I am writing this down. I don't know what to do anymore. I am scared, so scared. In my mind, pictures of this rotten corpse started to pop up. It is looking at me with its empty eye sockets, grinning at me, and then it starts to laugh. It is taunting me. What did I do to deserve this? Why is this happening? Please make it stop. Please. I don't want to die. I started stealing at a young age, started with small things like money, out of my dad's wallet. At 15, I broke into my first house, and at 20 I broke into a museum. So when my partner in crime Tony asked me if I was down to rob some rich man, I agreed. We arrived at the huge 3-story mansion, surrounded by at least 10 acres of beautiful land, covered with flowers and yard decorations. I turned to Tony and said, "These rich people are asking to be robbed." As we are hopping the 6-foot gate, Tony just laughed the same, twisted laugh as usual. We made our way up the driveway and around the back to Jimmy. A window opened without being seen. Climbing through the window, I was left speechless. The house looks way bigger on the inside, after filling sacks with weird decorations and silver cups. When Tony yells,
Hey Robbie! Check this out!
I ran over and I see a basement door protected by a keypad. I said, "Shit, Tony. This is your specialty." But Tony was already on it. Once he broke through using something I can understand, we went down the dark stairway feeling for a light switch when click. "Got it," Tony said. As the room lit up we saw nothing but a face on a pillar. When some reddish smoke substance started leaking out, almost like dry ice. "What?" I say, looking at Tony, who has the same puzzled look. "I don't know, but it's probably worth a lot." Carefully walking to the vase, Tony picks it up and just freezes. "You okay, man?" I say. When Tony turns around and I can see the red substance rushing up his nose and turns and laughs that same diabolical laugh. But something's different. His eyes are just a blood red, and his stance is different, like almost a sway. But I don't know, just different. I tried to knock the vase out of his hands, to stop whatever is happening, when he grabbed me by the throat, like I weighed no more than a feather, and slams me into the floor. I screamed as I felt my back almost shatter, and started clawing at his arms and face, trying to get him to release his grip, when he tosses me into a table. Struggling to get up, I grab a table leg and start swinging at him. But it does not seem to do anything but make him laugh. As he snatches it from my hand and tries to slam it across my head, I quickly ducked and limped my way to the stairs as fast as humanly possible. Tony just laughing as he follows me. When I see the same red smoke forming around my legs, hurrying, I make it to the top and slam the door behind me, knowing I would not be able to stop him. Even if he did not know how to break through the security, his brute force alone would shatter most doors. Making my way to the front door quickly, trying to unlock it. When more and more smoke fills up the room, barely able to breathe at this point. I open the door when Tony laughs and said,
"This was fun."
As the smoke grabs me and slings me out onto the yard. Thankfully a rose bush caught my fall. Trying to stand up now seemed pointless, especially with all the new holes in my skin. As my consciousness starts to fade, here a car slammed through the gate and the scared hum of tires. Probably about 10 people hopped out of the dark-colored van, all holding guns with weird uniforms, with an even stranger of logos on each person's arm. As my vision fades darker and darker, I smile, thinking, at least these are coming with me. It has been a few years since I lost my wife to an insidious disease. I used to hate hearing that, but with time and maturity, I came to realize that it is true. The people we do not see anymore still live in our hearts. Therefore, not long ago, after coming to terms with such a terrible loss, I had re-established one of our favorite traditions. Last week Sunday, at around 2 a.m, and equipped with a tasty red wine and a few grapes, I hopped in my boat, precisely a recreational motorboat with an outdoor motor. Jerry, please don't forget the blankets. She used to remind so that we do not freeze outside, just like we used to do together. I drove the boat and stopped it far enough from the coast, lit up a lantern and started feasting on the grapes, along with the wine. As I was also scrolling on my phone for pictures of her and pictures of us, so many memories flooded my mind, filling me with joy instead of sadness. At some point, I seemed to feel her presence. Strangely, this is exactly why I noticed it. Further away from the coast, something dark stood firmly on deeper waters of the sea. Struck with amazement and questions, I started the engine and drove up to the strange thing, its outlines and texture getting more clear, despite the dark as I got closer, until I realized that it was a small, dark wooden cabin. I stopped the boat some good meters away from it to contemplate that curiosity. How did it stand firmly on the water, without moving by an inch, is beyond my intelligence. I am not a social media person at all, but that was the kind of things that needed to be seen by millions of people. Amused by the idea, I smiled and tried to take a picture of it first, but my excitement vanished from my ardent face when I noticed that the cabin was not visible on the camera. This was much more serious than I thought. Its only window then opened, revealing a young, pale woman of outstanding beauty with dark hair and an apparently dark dress, gesturing me to approach without saying a word. I asked if she needed any help, but she kept quiet, only gesturing me to approach with an empty expression on her face. When I told her that I was about to go back to the coast instead, her neutral expression gave way to that of anger as her irises shone in a glowing yellow. All looking around in disbelief and starting the engine, preparing to disappear from there, I heard a splashing noise and realized that she was no longer at her window. In fact, the whole cabin had vanished. I then saw something moving fast in the water and approaching the boat at full velocity. I sped off to save my life, and on the way to a safer zone, I felt 2 or 3 bumps under the boat, fortunately without consequences, until I safely reached the coast. Later in the afternoon, when I came to check on my boat, I noticed deep scratching marks under it that seemed to be caused by an unnaturally strong human hand. A clear reason and warning to never again wander late at night on the sea.